Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Heaven on Earth. I'm Michael, the Leo Mystic, and this is where I channel the sacred guidance for this astrological week of the 8th until the 14th of February. It's Valentine's Day right there. There's a lot happening this week. It's packed and with very important events that we're going to be talking about. So the 13th of March, we start with the Astrological Course 101. This is my 6 years of diving into astrology experience and teaching it, learning it, reading astrological birth charts, and sharing my unique method of interpreting these charts. And it's really from scratch. To understand the basics of astrology. We're not getting into the weird aspects, into the yod or whatever. It is really from the planets, the aspects, the houses, but also where does astrology come from? Why do we use it, and why is it more important than ever now? So you can understand your own birth chart. The goal is also that you really look at the basics of your birth chart and start living it. Okay, that's important. So that's my way, that's my view on astrology, and putting that in a 6-week program, 6 weekends straight. So, this is live with me and, 8, 10, 15 other people. So see you there. The link is in the description below. So go and check that out. So this week we start off with a Mercury Cazimi, which is the eye opener. It's the insights. Mercury is still retrograde, so we still have to pay a lot of attention to what we're saying, what we're communicating, what we're thinking, in review with others. It is quite interesting that we're going to have a dark moon in Aquarius, which is, it's bringing up our relationship with other humans and how we relate to one another and how we as a society are connected. With technology. That's why technology and internet and the Wi-Fi rules Aquarius. But it's going to go all over all these planets, over Pluto and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn and Mercury. And, so then we have a new moon in Aquarius on Thursday at 8 p.m. And that's what we're building up to. And then the moon goes into Pisces and Aries, and it's just going to be, very interesting. So first and foremost, let's have a look. So there's a lot of Aquarian energy. The overarching theme here is Aquarius, and Aquarius is the future. So we are catching glimpses of the future right now. And honestly, what we're seeing now, what we're living now, we could pretty much say that we have a good view on what the future is going to be like. But the cool thing is that obviously we can decide, we can create our reality. And I think that's what we need to learn and to see, not just as human beings in and of themselves, but how we relate with one another and tell each other a story, and that we believe, and with those beliefs we impact our environment. So Mercury Cazimi on Monday starts. This is insights. And so we have so much Uranian Aquarian energy, which is the group, but it is squaring over to the planet that rules that Aquarian energy, which means it is needing to go through a change. It is needing to go through an evolution, a growth of what? Taurus, values, money, food. All these challenges are happening right there, and it is a new start of that challenge. It's actually a crisis in consciousness. It's that last 3/3 quarter square. So the crisis in consciousness of the people and how we, distribute food, how we distribute money, and how we interconnect with one another based on our values. And I think this Mercury retrograde, which is, by the way, going to trine the nodes, is going to share important information as to how we relate to one another, as to how we can empower one another or where we disempower one another. You know, this is very important information for our growth and for our evolution, where we now have to focus on our close environment, and that's why we cannot travel, because the South Node is in Sagittarius, which is let go of traveling, let go of philosophizing, you know, exploring your relationship with, you know, spirit and trying to find more theories about, you know, what the universe is all about. No, now we know that this is about integration into your society, about testing those theories, testing those beliefs, and really truly listening to one another. I think with that square over to Uranus, we need to feel our disempowerment of how we truly, first and foremost, depend on one another, but then having to face that there is so much difference, and that it is, if you know, get into that polarity of Leo, of ego, you can feel like nobody is how I am, and nobody, you know, understands me. And that is that Aquarian energy. I'm weird, I'm different. People are weird, people are different. But I think we truly, truly need to use this opportunity of the dark moon in Aquarius, which is going to expose the failures, the faults, the errors of, you know, where we are not cooperating as a society, where we're just various egos living next to one another. You know, there's no relationship with our neighbors anymore. And even if, you know, there was this, there wouldn't have been that COVID thing, you know, it has changed. We're living on ourselves. And so right now the universe is inviting us truly to connect with the neighbors again. And I think we're starting to see more and more people are just, you know, going and take a walk. More and more people are just standing in front of the door with one another, having conversations. Why? Because we need to understand that physical pain of not being with one another is truly what we value in this day and age of this modern technology. And you know, the question with this Mercury in retrograde and the realization that we can have is, you know, how will we as a society, as people with different backgrounds, different ideas, truly, how can we find a common ground, a common philosophy that we can really work with, that is not something that comes from, you know, a higher power, a higher force that controls the masses, but how can people come together and create one common philosophy that can be integrated, where everyone has its own individual part, can be intelligently enough and responsible enough to look after itself first and foremost, but then aware and conscious of the impact of, first and foremost, the community, and that community has its impact on that community, and those communities having impact on other countries. And, you know, I think this is where we can truly start looking at the invitation. This is my personal philosophy, you know, where we look at nature, where we look at our environment and mirror it, not just by listening to one another and truly, honestly, very neutral, very objectively listen to one another. What is your opinion? That's interesting. You know, I never thought of it that way. Can I maybe integrate it and try it out for myself? If you are very spiritual, then it is very, like, it's an invitation to go into science. If you're into science, it is an invitation to explore your spirituality. but to really try and test and verify, you know. But obviously that begs the question, you know, what are you basing the philosophy and the story on? There's so many stories, there's so much information. And then I think what helps for me is that we truly can see that everyone has a piece of the truth, and that all together we can then construct and work towards a greater truth. And that is where organisms such as cells and bacteria and viruses, interestingly enough, cooperate with one another. Where, for instance, if you look at, you know, I always like to go to nature as an inspiration. And as a matter of fact, with the South Node in Sagittarius, which is what we have to let go of, we also have to see it, well, where is the thing that we can learn from philosophy here and from the laws of nature? When we look at organisms such as nature, which are, by the way, you know, I feel and I see more intelligent than us in the way that they work together. They might not have their, you know, brain to, you know, a tree might not have that ability to ponder on itself and how I see myself, and, you know, oh, I'm just a tree and I'm not connected to the other trees. But we all know that these trees make a forest, and that the forest has its habitat, and, you know, or what do you call it again? The biosphere. And so where, you know, all these trees are working with one another, and in your body too, your cells are working with one another, which makes the human body. And, you know, these are 3 trillion cells that are synchronized with one another, and we, with our mind, can do something with it, but we can also decide to not do something with it. And so this is where we are so individualized, yet live together. And I think we've done a pretty good job in creating a society. But now it is really stepping up our game. That's what that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction really asked us to do last winter solstice. But if we're going to just keep living on ourselves and being isolated, well, then not much is going to happen. This is really, you know, with so much air energy, not much is shifting. It runs dry. You know, things are just, you know, are at a very ideal level, and it's not much application, and things are just continuing the way it is going. But it is right now where new philosophies are being shaped, and so that's why we have to be very careful what we leave over to, you know, what we let come in terms of theories, in terms of beliefs. Right now, that inspiration, that's the goal, I think, and I feel, of that lockdown is, first and foremost, learn to appreciate your local market, your local people, your local neighborhood, and focus on that again, and see the appreciation you have for that, and just, you know, come together, start from here. But now first you need to focus on yourself. And that's what we've seen with this lockdown, is a lot of people had an opportunity to look at themselves. What is good for me? What makes me feel happy? What makes me feel healthy? And this is where I feel this lockdown, you know, people really need to realize that how we need to come up with a plan. Once we go back to, you know, going into society and operating with this new paradigm here, how am I going to proceed? How can I keep my integrity? How can I keep my values? But then at the same time connect with one another again. Because the pitfall here would be, okay, you know, let's just continue what we were doing, which is never going to happen anyway. But, I mean, never say never, but it's very unlikely considering what has happened and how everybody, you know, has become so accustomed to this technological ways of doing things. I think businesses have seen that people can work from, their homes, that you don't have to have a business. Or maybe on the other hand, people say, well, we do want to connect, we want to have a business. But now, at least when I used to teach in schools or in businesses, then that was a big problem, where people were just in a company and they were not happy. So because they were not free enough. I think we've received a lot of freedom, paradoxically, knowing that we can work from home, knowing that we can just, when we're doing a seminar or a workshop, just shut the camera down, people who are working online, for instance, and to just continue with the, without having to be stuck in traffic. I think this is the point of view. Our point of view right now is so important, where we put our focus on. So we have to go back to basics. In these times, we have to go back to basics. What is our environment telling us? What are the basic laws of nature that mankind have really verified? What is the modern science truly saying? What are some facts? And where everybody can have a realization as to what makes me happy, right? And how can I share this? This is a moment of sharing and taking, right? So you can't just share, and you can't just take. But where can you find the balance for yourself? And that's what this new moon in Aquarius is really about, okay? It is really about, how am I contributing to myself, to my society, and is it having a positive impact, no matter what you do? So the values of our society, that start with you, and it start with the next people around you, the family. And I think this is important, where we look at, for me personally, things like the theories Confucius and Lao Tzu about the family and about a society. A strong family makes a good society. I mean, they've had those, in my opinion, very valid theories and very honorable theories. I think things like democracy or communism or whatever have shown their benefits and their they're not so positive aspects. And what we've learned, I feel, and I see when we read books such as, Lessons of History by, I forgot their names, their brothers, anyway, but a really, I think it was a Pulitzer Prize, or it's not a Pulitzer Prize, it's, it has won a lot of prizes anyway. It is a highly validated book, something William something. Anyway, where they've shown that it's not democracy or it's not communism. Their system's valid in and of themselves, but it's how people use it. And then I feel that, that's where people themselves, the question is, how can we make sure that people realize for themselves, first and foremost, what is the good health, what is the good wealth, what is the good love, and what makes me happy, and what makes other people happy, and the connection to a higher, something bigger than themselves. All right, so these are the basic values. This is the basic value of being a human being, and that's the thing at stake here. That's the or are we just gonna let human beings extinct and go to a new technology, AI, become a new species? Because that's really what's going on here. And evolution just says, well, I'm just going to keep evolving, and it doesn't matter. Evolution is just evolution. And even if people die, and even if Mother Nature as we know it goes to transform or dies, nature itself or the earth itself is just going to keep doing what it does. But I think for us human beings, it really becomes important as to what makes a human being. What makes a healthy human being? what makes a wealthy human being, what makes a loving human being, what makes a happy human being. And everything is built up from, you just have to look at first the atoms. Atoms build there's obviously molecules, and molecules build cells, and cells build organs, systems of the body, and then systems build the human being. And then human beings are like those cells again that make a structure, that make tissue, and that tissue that makes organs. And so we have to look at the basics here. We can't just solve something from, where symptoms, we can't just solve symptoms. We have to look at the cause. We have to look at the root here. We have to go within in the human being. And I think for then, we have to go to Indian philosophy. We have to go to the shamans. We have to go to our ancestors. We have to go to the wisdom where people lived in harmony with nature and where they were happy within. And now I see only the trap of being focused on something external to make me happy, and something external, an external force that is going to give me power. But it is very clearly necessary for us to go back to our roots and go back to our true spirituality. South Node in Sagittarius, square Neptune. We have to connect with spirit again. We have to connect with something higher, that is not something that is forced upon us. Not forced, but something that is a truth that we find deep inside the human nature. So we have to focus on things like a healthy human being, a healthy relationship with ourselves. What makes a healthy human being? What makes a healthy relationship? And then we can start thinking, we can keep on building. But it is sick at so many levels. Humanity is sick at so many levels that you can't just fix the society's problems in and of themselves. We have to start with education on health, wealth, love, and happiness, and looked at the mirror of society, not society, but nature. Looking at nature itself, at what we are made of, what we are built of. And then we can start thinking, okay, how we can make this society better. And then there's other theories that have been tested, but we have to go to the root cause here. And that's my whole discourse. And I think, if you just look at this forecast, this is very Aquarian, very, neutral, objective. This is very mental. That's what the energy is right now, at this very moment. And, right now we have to test it. We have to live it. We have to experience it. We have to really look at ourselves and say, okay, well, is this true? Is this true that meditation works? Is it true that that what astrology says, that this, when Mercury goes retrograde, that appliances are not functioning properly more than ever? This is about testing. This is about results. This is about verifying the theories that have been out there. So here's to being a doctor of yourself, to be an experimenter, to be someone who truly does its research and then verifies and listens to others and really is open to learn. That's what that dark moon, new moon, and Mercury retrograde, Mercury Cazimi in Aquarius is all about. And then truly, I believe, then we can truly start integrating with Mars and Taurus, healthy values again. So we have to start the dialogue. How can we go back to basics with every human being and make sure that they take responsibility, feel healthy, and have a good impact on their environment instead of letting them be dependent on one another? That's it. Right? Did you enjoy this forecast? Or what would you like to hear more of? I want to hear from you. What are some answers that you're looking for? Or what are some questions, some answers to some certain questions that you are looking for? What are you pondering upon right now? Let's open this dialogue. let's learn from the differences from one another. Thank you so much for being here. See you next week. Much love. Bye bye.